Welcome to the flowerschool.com video library. I'm Leanne Kessler, Director of the Floral Design Institute, and today I'm here to share with you a short segment on making a baby's breath wreath. They're oh so popular for weddings these days. If you look through Pinterest, you'll see photo after photo after photo, done in a very fancy wedding, maybe the Great Gatsby style, and also in a very rustic wedding, almost like that country chic. It works for either. And it's actually so easy once you know the mechanics. So let's get started. I'll show you the secrets behind the baby's breath wreath. The necessary supplies, quite minimal. The whole thing is built on a wreath ring. They come in a variety of sizes. I use the 12-inch ring, but they also come smaller and larger. Just soak them in flower food and water, and then go ahead and design. The only flower, the baby's breath. And I used a variety called Million Stars. It's a newer variety. It's been around several years, but it's considered to be the new generation of baby's breath. And it's a smaller head that's very, very long-lasting, quite white, and it's very dense in its growth format. So it holds fabulously and looks wonderful for days. It's such that you can actually do this several days in advance, keep it refrigerated, take it out, and have it be beautiful at the event. The most difficult part is the fact that the foam is green and the baby's breath is white, so it takes so much just to cover the holder. It can make you so frustrated by the time you're done. You think, oh my gosh, I will never get all that green covered. So the trick is to fix it before you even begin. So I took my wreath ring, and before I soaked it, I painted it so that it's white. And yes, it'll still soak nicely. I just used the paint from Design Master. I use glossy white. You could use matte white. It doesn't really make any difference. You just want a nice white finish. Paint the whole ring, then go ahead and soak it in your flower food water. And then I went back and touched it up a little bit where I'd missed a bit. You can see it's still green underneath. It's not solid. The back I didn't paint at all. But the front now will blend in with the baby's breath much more easily. There are other options for concealing the green if you don't want to use paint. You could use a standard acetate ribbon in ivory or white. I usually use ivory because the white is too harsh against the baby's breath. And just make a little bow, nothing fancy. Maybe just 2 loops on either side. Wire that off using about a 22 gauge wire. Strong enough to twist and then insert, but not so strong that it hurts your fingers. Then take the bows and put them in first so that they cover over the foam. And then when you add the baby's breath, you'll set it in between each of the loops, but you can see you have a nice white base to begin with. If you prefer, you can do the same thing with tulle. The netting, just pull off a segment. And I would use multiple segments rather than one long one. And then just wad it slightly in your hand, and then using a greening pin, tuck that right down into the foam. Then go back, take another segment, cluster it together, and then insert a greening pin to hold it into place. And keep doing that as you go around, just covering over with a light layer. Now the tulle doesn't cover as completely as the ribbon, and they obviously give a little more dimension than just painting. But they're all 3 options to give you a great base to work with before you do the baby's breath. Easiest when you go to add the baby's breath in is to pre-cut it. Get it down into manageable pieces. And you really don't want it to be too long. Just almost like the laterals plus an inch, so that you've got nice small bits to work with. And going through and cutting it ahead of time allows you then to do your insertions fairly rapidly. Then you just cluster them into your hands, making sure they're all about the same length, and then go through and insert it down into the foam. And again, repeat, clustering, and then insert, bringing some to the front, some up over the top, and then some around to the inside, because you want to cover all three sides of the form, keeping it fairly consistent. It doesn't have to be identical in length, but as long as it's close. If it's absolutely identical, it'll be too perfect, too smooth. You won't have any dimension. If it's too far apart, it'll be lumpy. So there's just that sort of gray area where it's a little bit in, a little bit out, various lengths. And if you're uncomfortable, start even with just one piece at a time until you see how it fits together, and then go back and add the next piece and feeding it in. But you can see doing one at a time be very slow and tedious. It is much easier to have them pre-cut, laid out in front of you in similar lengths, and then just gather in your hands, go through and insert, take another clustering, gather in your hands, and go through and insert. As you can see, I've covered quite a bit while the camera was off, but I still have this back side to continue. So I've pre-cut, and I just keep adding and filling it in, making sure that I've got it on that inside, the outside, and the top. And then periodically, as you're working, just to be safe, you want to take your wreath, pick it up, and shake it. Make sure that nothing's going to fall off. Because if it is going to, you want to do it now. Because sometimes you'll be working and you'll get something that isn't inserted deeply enough, or that you just drop on top of the wreath, and so then when you go to pick it up, that piece falls off, and you don't want that to happen. Now as I work, I also look for broken bits, making sure that everything is going to be lush, and that it's going right down into the foam, getting a good full inch insertion so that I make sure that it's going to be stable and not fall apart during delivery or once it gets hung. So as simple as it is, the mechanics are the important part of this particular design. When you go to create your own wreath, you'll be surprised just how much baby's breath it takes. This 12-inch ring took 2.5 bunches of baby's breath. Yes, almost 3 bunches just to create a 12-inch ring. So you've got to be careful and really plan ahead, because as simple and as easy, the mechanics and the quantity of product are always a little bit of a surprise. Now when you go to hang it, you can either just use it as it is, and then an S-hook, and attach it, and then hook it wherever you want it to be. Or you could use a wreath hook and just slide it in through. Or even better, you could use a little bit of ribbon. Now I've got this beautiful lace, has glitter on it as well, and I just bring this and double it over so it's double length, wrapping it around, bring it through to the back, and then taking and pulling the long ends through, getting it all tucked around there, then pulling it taut. And yes, it does squish down the baby's breath in that area, but it's such a pretty ribbon. That's okay. You can see you can pull it, give it a tug, adjust it, just kind of manipulate it around so that it gets all nice and tidy, and pull it again. Then on this end, just tie a knot. Then you can cut the end however long you want it. Give it a little bit of a flare. And then taking that, just slip that right over a hook, letting it hang. It can go down in front of a doorway, maybe a wall, a newel post. It looks great most anywhere. A baby's breath wreath done this way with the water source and the wreath ring, sprayed down with Crowning Glory when you're done to make sure and lock that moisture in, can easily last 3 days or more in your flower cooler. And then when you take it out and hang it, you still have a day or two of absolute beauty. And then, as it dries, it just turns a little bit grayer. but it doesn't really look awful. So it actually makes a keepsake for many, 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 many days after the wedding. In fact, some people will keep it far too long after the wedding because yes, it does fade. But isn't it beautiful? Isn't it easy? Now you know the mechanics and the techniques to make it long-lasting and actually easy to make and not have to worry about hiding all that green. Putting the white underneath solves that problem. Now for more creative inspiration and technique, check out our website at flowerschool.com. If you've got questions, need to know where to find something, you're welcome to contact us through the website or by telephone at 1-800-819-8089. If it's easier, use my personal email. It's leanne@floraldesigninstitute.com. I do really love to hear from you. Now it's your turn. How big of a wreath are you going to make? And where are you going to hang it? Have fun and do something you love.